Firstly, on behalf of the Elephants team, we would like to welcome Mark Saunders, a legend in the field and highly respected man from Malalangwe. And we would like to also, I would also as team captain, like to thank the various team members from all over the world for participating in this and giving of their time and of themselves. And I'm sure a few of you will put your hands in your pockets and actually contribute to such a fantastic cause and being able to save our wildlife and also to really make a difference in the anti-poaching world in the Zambezi Valley, but essentially all over Southern Africa. And without further ado, it just humbles me to say thank you to everybody who's involved.
Good afternoon, guys and girls, if there's any girls on. Okay, I'll just kick off and invite any questions or comments, but just shut me up if I'm boring you or going off track. We've got 450 odd people around the property working. 25% of those are scouts, like you see in the picture there. We've got close on 350 rhino on the property, and we're very cognizant that we are very grateful and lucky to have a wonderful set of donors. And there are a lot of other people like Vapu and Vic Falls, the other anti-poaching units around the country, Booby, Savi Valley. We talk to these guys, a hell of a good bunch of guys, and we have different, I guess, slightly different systems that suit specific areas, specific budgets, etc. We're having to work really hard now because COVID-19 has not escaped us. We are significantly impacted. I've had to halve my budget, but we are still a whole heap luckier than many, Tina, because we've had this fantastic support. But what we found is training, discipline, loyalty, experience, tracking ability, etc., and a community-minded aspect to our anti-poaching thrust is hell of an important, because there's obviously got to deal with informer networks, etc., in the field of anti-poaching.
Mark, as much as I understand, Malalangwe is quite unique in the fact that you've got a diverse ecosystem there, right from the north to the south. And you have quite a lot of sort of different types of vegetation in these different ecosystem zones. And do you find a lot of the animals, you know, the history of the animals and their sort of their development, they move and live in these different areas and you find them?
100%, Kenyan. We've got 38 different types of habitat here, 438 different species of plant. And yeah, there are definitely hotspots within those different habitats. For example, black rhino being a browser, they prefer a certain type of shrubbery. So we do have hotspots in known areas like Nyala. Nyala oftentimes in the hills, and things like that. Our hartebeest are down on the plains in the south, where it's more open grassland. So it's a big factor, Kenyan, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just a quick short story. I took a journalist to Pomashana 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember, Mark, a guy called Peter Brown.
Yes, very well, yeah.
And we went to the watering hole, and thankfully you were with us, and we had a great afternoon. Within like 2 hours, we had white rhino. I think we had three mothers and their babies, and then a black rhino came, and he was quite cheeky. And yeah. then we had 2 lioness, 2 big bull elephants, and then literally as we were leaving, there was a leopard. And it was an incredible experience. I mean, one of my best I've ever had in the wildlife. You know, we didn't get to see buffalo, but I mean would have been almost the big 5. So it was an incredible experience for me. Yeah.
That's amazing, Dean. Yeah, I remember Peter, and thank you so much for bringing him, and look forward to you to bringing more people. But just those stories don't happen every day. But that waterhole in particular, there's not much water around in the dry season apart from that, and so it's hell of an active. But just interesting, last night I was after work. I was on the dam with my kids at sunset here, and we had a buffalo boiling out of the bush with 4 lions on its tail. Unfortunately, the buffalo won. And then one of my guys got hold of me on the radio and said, "Jeepers, I'm at another dam, and we had a we had a pack of 8 wild dogs chase a Burubak cow and her calf into a dam. Crocodile grabbed the calf, fortunately got away, and ran outside the water, and the wild dogs ripped its ear off. But its mother again managed to fight them off, and they ran away to live another day. So, yeah, we have interesting times here.
Anybody got some follow-on questions to that? Yes, John.
Tino, just
Miles,
chatting,
you can go after John.
just asking Mark regarding rhino. A very good friend of mine, Dr. William Folds, has suggested that as soon as you cut a rhino's horn off, it actually changes the whole character and nature of the rhino. It actually affects them from almost a personality perspective. I just wanted to ask Mark, what has his findings been, and have they ever cut off any rhino horn in order to be able to try and preserve them? It's just a very fascinating question as to how that actually affects the rhino.
Yeah, John, thanks for that. I have heard that. I can't say whether it's true or not in terms of our experience, because we, like I say, we don't dehorn. What we have done in the past, in 2015, we translocated some black rhino on behalf of the government into Botswana, and we had to tip their horns, obviously because of their transport in the crates, not wanting to snap their horn off in the crate, etc. But that was too short a space of time to see whether that even had an effect on their character or their demeanor. So I can't answer that, John, from a scientific perspective, because we haven't had experience of that.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and Mark, thanks for all your efforts. Actually, a little share is that I had my honeymoon in Pamushana, actually.
Oh, really?
It was a very special time. Importing rhino and exporting, I was just wondered where you import from and where you export to. And there was a story a little while ago about maybe sending some to Australia. I don't know if that was any truth of that.
The Australian one, no. There's been a lot of talk about that as well, but we haven't been part of that. Our exports and imports, our founder population, because we started basically with zero, our founder population came from KwaZulu-Natal in the reserves there. And then in 2012, we bought in 2 black rhino from the Chirezi River Conservancy because they were being persecuted there. And then our exports of rhino, we've sent, as I mentioned earlier, we've sent to Botswana, 8 black rhino. We sent 30, sorry, I haven't got the graph in front of me, but we sent 30 odd into Savi Valley Conservancy on a custodianship deal where we wanted to initiate another founder population to try and create what we call key 1 populations. A key 1 population is one of 100 animals or more, which is seen as viable by the African Rhino Specialist Group, etc. And then we've sent to Booby as well in 2013. Booby Conservancy, we sent 10. We have been asked this week by National Parks to send some more black rhino into Botswana, and we're trying to professionally advise that it's not the right time now because they've had quite a bit of poaching in the Delta where they're possibly earmarked for. So we've got a big conversation coming up there. We are looking potentially at sending a small group of white rhino males into an area south of Wangi National Park on a community custodianship deal. But obviously, when we do these things, 2 things are critical. Their habitat, in fact, 3 things. Their habitat that they're going into, is it commensurate? The security, what is that like? What are the abilities of the receiving areas in managing the security? And then obviously the long-term plan there. You don't want to send an endangered species somewhere like rhino, and it works for a year, and then people leave or people get moved off. So those are the fundamentals that we do in terms of importing and exporting rhino. And obviously there are CITES issues involved in terms of permits, their national parks and ministry permits. So it's quite a complicated game, and it's a hell of a serious consideration when you are fetching and carrying rhino, Dinya.
Mark, going on from Mike's question, there's several arguments in South Africa. They say that they've got a population of over 20,000, of which I think possibly a third is in private hands. And they say that they feel that if they flood the market with rhino horn, that it will drive the price down far enough that it will not become economically viable for people to take the chance and actually continue poaching. What are your thoughts on that subject?
For what it's worth, John, my thoughts are that that wouldn't satisfy the demand. It's obviously worthwhile doing. Flooding the market is a good thing, but I don't think personally, it's my view, that it is going to make a significant dent in the continued existence of the trade or the illegal trade in wildlife, and in particular this particular case, rhino. They have, yeah, you're right. Those numbers you give are correct, and yeah, I've given you my answer. I don't think it would make that much difference personally.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. Very interesting.
Thanks a lot, Mark. I'm going to jump in there with a couple of questions. I can see Dave and Vince, you guys are still on, but I don't have your video. If you've got any questions or contributions, please just get those ready. But just two parts to my question. The first one, Mark, is of course, poachers are wanting tusks and they want rhino horn, etc. Do they just poach, kill the animal and leave the flesh as is, or do they use that for something else? And the second part to the question is, you guys were talking a little bit earlier about moving animals around. How difficult is that process from province to province, logistically, as well as in terms of paperwork? And do you do cross-border as well of animals? And just what does it entail?
So, Tina, the first answer to your first question is, I would say 95% of poached animals are left to rot in a complete waste. They're only there for the horn or the tusk or the scale, if you're talking about pangolin. And they don't have the time or the inclination to hang around and cut up the meat and take the meat away, because the value is in the horn or the tusk. So absolutely, they only take what is valuable to them.
Okay.
And then the second one, yeah, there's a huge administrative amount of work to do when you are translocating animals, whether it's between provinces, as you say, or districts, or across the border. As I mentioned earlier, there are CITES aspects to certain species that you need to get CITES approval. There are veterinary aspects. For example, buffalo. We can't move buffalo north of here because we're in a foot and mouth area. So there's a red zone, a red veterinary zone. So although we have a market and a need to move buffalo off because they are one of our challenges in terms of bulk grazing for our white rhino, we can't move them from a veterinary perspective. So we're trying to move some now into Mozambique. National parks have actually gone down into the area. We want to move them in Mozambique, done a site assessment as is necessary. And then they come back with that site assessment, take it to the head office, say we're happy with it as ecologists and vets. And then the movement process starts once all administrative boxes are ticked. But it's probably a 3 to 4 month process.
And you talked about trying to move some rhino to Mozambique, etc. Once you've moved them across like that, you keep track of them, or whoever's taken them over just looks after them and gives feedback every now and then?
We do take cognizance of them. We do follow them. Our ones in Botswana, we introduced an MOU, which was such that if our populations in Zim ever, we're in a stage that they're going to become extinct, the progeny of the ones we sent there would possibly be used to repatriate this side. So we do keep close tabs on where our animals go here.
Okay, all right, that's cool. Any other questions, guys, or contributions? Eddie, you've been particularly quiet.
Yeah, I've got one, Tino. Mark, I was just wondering, in terms of international legislation, what would you like to see changed locally and internationally?
Legislation in terms of what exactly, Eddie?
Well, it could be with the rhino horn to make that illegal, or anything to do with conservation. What would you like to see at a higher level to help you do your ground level job?
And again, I'm not talking specifically on Zimbabwe right now. I'm talking all-encompassingly. For us, the decision makers need to be people of experience and integrity, so that they can understand what you're motivating for and the reasons behind that. That would help a huge amount. governments worldwide adhering to one type of legislation. For example, the moving of baby elephants, which is topical and sensitive in Zimbabwe. With a CITES permit, you can move baby elephants, but it's the circumstances around which you do that, which is important.
So it's up to the local governments, and they can't sort of come together as governments to make legislation come together, and more international to make a bigger difference.
Yeah, I think there should be a lot more engagement on an international platform with governments. Having said that, I mean, I've been lucky enough to be part of a wildlife economy summit where we had folks from Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, Botswana, South Africa, and Mozambique. In fact, we didn't have Mozambique, but that was very encouraging to see the ministers and interact with the ministers there. It was exciting to see that it can happen. I think it's the consistency of application of these things across governments, which is important.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Can I ask one? Sorry, Vince. Can I ask Mark one?
Yes, please, Vince. Carry on, please.
Mark, first, thanks very much for your time. I mean, you run such a fantastic ship down there. We came down a number of years ago on a couple of trips, actually, at Pamashana. In fact, Andy Flower will remember one name. I brought Malcolm Speed down there once. He was head of world cricket at the time. And I took him down there for a couple of days, and it was his single best ever experience of the African bush. I mean, he actually said that to us. He'd been to Africa many, many times, and he thought it was fantastic. So just one of the experiences. Sorry, but I just want to ask you, are the Tudor Jones family still involved in your trust? And are you still getting lots of international support, money-wise, for the trust, or is it mostly local or Southern African? Is it international still?
Vince, it's international stuff. Mostly, tourism, high-end tourism is one of the drivers that we are trying to showcase, that tourism can fund conservation, but conservation costs money. And this year was going to be the first year that we were going to be showing a profit within our non-profit that goes straight back into conservation. But most of our funding does come from international well-wishers, and the name you mentioned has been one of our very valued financial supporters. Yeah,
that's good to hear. It's good to hear that they're still interested in Zimbabwe and obviously interested in your trust and your setup there.
Yeah, Vince, it's becoming it's probably my biggest challenge at the moment, is to try and maintain the level of support that we have enjoyed over 26 years. But we do have a very, very dedicated set of financial supporters who all absolutely love Zimbabwe, and yeah, we're really grateful for that.
Andy here.
Okay, Andy, you go first. Grant, you go after.
Thanks, Mike. Mark, really interesting to listen to you talk. Thank you very much for your time. I've just got a slightly more personal question. I'm assuming, looking at where you are on the map, that you border on the Whittles Conservancy. Do you work closely with them? Does the fence mean that animals don't move between the two areas? And if you do work closely with them, how are they, and how's their conservancy getting on?
Thanks, Andy. Good to see you again, man. Andy, obviously Guy and I were at school. We're very good mates, and Guy's father, Roger, is an icon in conservation in the Lowveld here. So animals don't come and go between our properties because we are fenced, but they are all well. Obviously, they are constrained like many in terms of their wildlife operations at the moment, but we do collaborate a lot. And I do speak to Guy. We have a conservation games, a cricket match every year between Sawi Valley Conservancy and ourselves. I captain our side and Guy captains their side. Love to see some of you in that attire sometimes, because they always play in their camouflage uniforms. But yes, we do collaborate. Guy is, he's a senior player in that conservancy. Obviously, there are a number of players. I think there are 32 different businesses there, of which Humani is one of them. But it's a successful one, and it continues to be so.
Yeah, thank you very much for the info, Mark, and interesting to see. Obviously, the conservation games, we're trying to raise both awareness for conservation and anti-poaching, as well as money. Can you give us an idea on what it costs to run the anti-poaching program at Malilongwe, whether it's on a monthly basis or an annual basis?
Grant, it costs us, and again, this is not a reflection of everybody else's costs, but it costs us about in excess of $500,000, probably 600,000 a year. But that's with 100 scouts. That's with obviously a number of vehicles. That's with all the uniforms and boots, rations, salaries, all that kind of stuff, data, equipment. But it costs us that much money. Yeah.
Mark, thanks a lot, of course, for your time and educating all of us, of course, on conservation in the Zambezia region. And once again, guys, to all the team players, thank you very much for giving off of your time to support this very, very worthy cause. I can see the captain's got something to say to us before we go.
Tino, thank you, and especially to Mark, and just to our teammates out there, just thank you for your time, and let's try and see if as a team, as Team Elephants, that we can actually make a significant financial contribution towards conservation in Zimbabwe. So any of your ideas or anything that will make a difference in being able to raise some funds for the preservation of our heritage would be appreciated. If you want to privately WhatsApp me anytime, no stress at all. It's just fantastic being able to lead you, and it's a tremendous honor. And thank you to Robin and Luke for their amazing initiative.
Thanks a lot for that, John. Very quickly before we go, guys, at Team Zambezia, we have what is called the clap for conservation. So if I can very quickly just ask everybody to put their hands together for a few seconds and clap for conservation in the region. Thank you very much, guys, once again for all your time. To the viewers, once again, some time with us. Remember, it's www.zambezia.com. You can go out there and have a look at all the wonderful work that people are doing for conservation in the Zambezia region. There's options for you there to take part and be a difference in conservation in the region. So until next time, guys, thanks a lot once again, Team Elephants. Mark, you've been absolutely brilliant, and we'll catch up with you guys very, very soon. Until then, take care.
Our wildlife needs help. Tourism to Africa is at an all-time low. You can assist by liking and sharing the conservation games. You can contribute financially by hitting the donate button on the Zambezia.com website. Let's get together and back up the frontline conservation team.